everyone, welcome to this video, and man, it's almost here. We are less than 2 weeks away to Godzilla King of the Monsters. Opening night is upon us, and I gotta be honest, it feels like time is moving in slow motion. I am super excited to finally see this film. We have waited, and when I say we, I mean all the Godzilla fans and all the giant monster movie fans out there. We have waited 5 years for this movie, ever since it was announced that there was going to be a sequel to the Legendary Pictures Godzilla film, and especially after the announcement that Rodan, Mothra, and King Ghidorah were all going to star alongside Godzilla in this film. And it's been a long wait, but we're almost there, and I cannot wait to finally see this movie. Now, to kind of build into this film and build anticipation for this film, I went back and did my Kaiju Corner series and reviewed various giant monster movies and kaiju films all around the world and all through various different eras of cinema. But now that we're in the home stretch, I thought it'd be cool to take a more focused look onto specific monsters, specifically Godzilla's major co-stars that are going to be starring alongside him in Godzilla King of the Monsters. And today we're going to be focusing on Rodan. Now, Rodan was always a big deal to me, and actually he's on the shirt, if you see him right there. Rodan was one that I discovered very early into my giant monster movie fandom. I actually saw the original Rodan film, or at least the American version of the original Rodan film, before I saw the original Godzilla film. So Rodan is very near and dear to my heart, and I think one of the things that attracted me to Rodan right away was that even though I loved Godzilla and he's this big, powerful, bulky, methodical, destructive beast, Rodan was the complete physical opposite, where he's fast, he's sleek, he's a flyer. The original Rodan has such dynamic action sequences with the fighter jets, and then the scene where the two Rodans, the mates, they attack Fukuoka, one of the best city destruction scenes that Toho's ever done. And ever since I saw that first Rodan film, I've just always been a huge fan of the Winged Terror, the supersonic monster, the flying monster, Rodan. And one thing that also appealed to me with Rodan is that my mother, who wasn't always the biggest giant monster movie fan, she actually got me into the Universal monsters, the Dracula and the Frankensteins and all that, but Godzilla and King Kong wasn't really her cup of tea, typically. King Kong and Godzilla, I got into those because of my oldest brother. But Rodan was actually one that she saw in theaters in 3D back in the 50s. So she has fond memories of seeing that movie. So that was one that she was actually excited to pass down to me. She always used to tell me stories about how, oh, I saw this movie in theaters and I really liked it. It was Rodan. And I was always amazed that this Japanese monster that crossed over into the Godzilla series was a favorite of my mom. So even though my mom wasn't really into the whole kaiju thing, Rodan was one that she liked, and that was always kind of cool to me. So I always made a point of, whenever I saw Rodan in a Godzilla movie, I was like, look, Mom, it's Rodan. He's the one that you like. And I'm sure she's like, okay, she smiled and nodded because she was a good mom. But I'm sure deep down she was like, dude, I don't care that much. But that was kind of like an interesting thing. Mom and I had a shared interest in the creature Rodan. So Rodan has always had a very special, near and dear to my heart kind of status in my fandom. And actually, if I'm going to be perfectly honest here, he is my second favorite behind Godzilla. Godzilla's the king, but Rodan is not too far behind him. And I've just always had a soft spot for that guy. And of all of Godzilla's sidekicks, I guess you would call him, if you look at Anguirus and King Caesar and Jet Jaguar, and in the 70s, Godzilla had to have a sidekick in each movie. It was crazy. Almost every movie, but you know what I mean. But of all of his sidekicks, my personal favorite one was Rodan, because Rodan, I just really liked him. So when Godzilla got paired up with him in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster and Godzilla vs. Monster Zero, that was a pairing that always excited me. And it was also cool to get to see them fight in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster as a kid. And actually, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, that particular film, was a big deal to me as a child, because as a Godzilla fan, I'd watched King Kong vs. Godzilla, I watched Godzilla Raids Again, and I'd watched Mothra vs. Godzilla vs. the Thing to us Americans. And Godzilla lost in all three of those films, so I was kind of like, it's like, alright, I love the guy, but I feel like I'm backing a loser here. And Rodan I already liked because I saw the original film, so to have Godzilla and Rodan together in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster was great to me. To see them fight was great to me. And then at the end, when they joined forces and fought King Ghidorah, and both of them won, I was in heaven. Like, I was like, finally, I got the movie I wanted. This is great. And, for as awesome as that moment was for Godzilla, and as Mothra being the one to kind of bring all the monsters together, it was also very cool to me that Rodan got to share in that moment as well. And Rodan, to me, was always one of the biggies as far as the Toho monsters goes. In the 60s, it was the big four. It was Godzilla, King Ghidorah, Mothra. Mothra would be number 2 behind Godzilla in terms of popularity. And Rodan. And then in the 70s, Mechagodzilla came along and kind of took that spot away from Rodan to where it kind of became... Mechagodzilla became bigger than Rodan, and if Rodan was going to be counted in that higher class, he'd be the top 5 rather than the top 4. And Rodan just didn't seem to come back as much. He came back in 1993 for Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. It was great to see him in that as well, and he got to put up a fight against Godzilla and Mechagodzilla and actually help Godzilla defeat Super Mechagodzilla at the end, which was really cool. But he didn't seem to get much consideration. Like, I saw Mothra get brought back in 92, and then Mothra got her own trilogy, and then when the Millennium films kicked in, Mothra got to come back a few more times, and King Ghidorah always came back, like in 91, then in Mothra 3, and then in GMK, and then again in Final Wars. Like, Ghidorah and Mothra were these two constants that just kept coming back, and Mechagodzilla as well. And I was always left to kind of wonder, what about Rodan? Like, come on, you can bring Rodan back. It's fine. Rodan's one of the biggies. He deserves more love, and Rodan does deserve more love. And it was really cool to see him in Final Wars. I was like, oh, finally, I get my boy. There's my guy. And Rodan actually had one of the standout scenes in the film with his destruction of New York City, and looked great. Personally, my personal favorite design for Rodan is the original 1956 version. Close second would be 2004. I thought Rodan turned out the best of the 14 monsters that are in that movie. I think Rodan probably got the best end of the stick compared to a lot of others, for sure. I thought Rodan came off great in that film, but then again, it was like, all right, that was the end of the series, and then they took a break, and then we get the first legendary Godzilla film and Shin Godzilla, which were really just showcases for Godzilla and a couple of new ideas, not so much going back to the past. And then we go into the anime trilogy, and who gets to come back? Again, it's Mechagodzilla, who came back, but not really. Ghidorah, who was the best out of all the ones that came back. Mothra gets a brief cameo, and, we were originally promised a planet of monsters, so I'm thinking, where's Rodan? And we get to see Rodan's corpse, but that's it. And it's like, oh my god, so disappointing. So, I'm just starved for more Rodan content. Mothra, I've kind of had my fill. Ghidorah, I've had my fill, but, and I'm going to have plenty of nice things to say about Mothra and King Ghidorah in the upcoming videos, don't worry. But I really just wanted to highlight, how much I really like Rodan. And actually, one of my favorite childhood toys, I kind of wish I still had some of these, but the Trendmasters Godzilla line. The original 6 figures, it was Godzilla, Mothra, Rodan, Mechagodzilla, King Ghidorah, and Mecha King Ghidorah, which if you're going to release a 6-figure line for Wave 1, I mean, that's like the perfect lineup, I think. It's like those are the exact 6 I would probably pick for first releases of a Godzilla toy line. But then as the toy line evolved and more monsters got added, and they started to like make redos of the other monsters that they'd already released, and one of their sublines was like this cybernetic monster armor set with like the monsters with like missile launchers and special like metallic armor and all these other things. The Mecha Ghidorah one, actually, you could take the metal head off and it became like its own winged ship or something. It was really cool, like subline. And one of my favorites of the line, actually probably my favorite, was the Rodan figure, which looks so cool to see this winged toy with all these like metallic armor platings hanging off of it and a missile launcher and all these other things. And so probably if I had to pick a favorite toy from the Trendmasters Godzilla toy line, it would probably be the Cyber Rodan figure. Personal taste, but yeah, so I've always been a big fan of Rodan, and even when it came to some other things like the first NES game, Godzilla Monster of Monsters, I'm looking at the list of all the bosses on there. It's like, all right, you play as Godzilla and Mothra, and I'm looking at the list of all the bosses, and say, wait a minute, so Gizora, Mogera, Varan, and Baragon make the cut, but not Rodan. And Anguirus. I was also upset that Anguirus didn't make the cut. I'm like, what the hell is that? But wait, those chumps get to make the cut, but not Rodan and Anguirus? That's insulting. So Rodan was, to me, he's one of the big, like, top crown jewel monsters of Toho's monster cast, and he doesn't always get treated like it. So when I heard that Rodan was going to be in Godzilla King of the Monsters, I was stoked. I was like, oh, thank God, Rodan gets to be in this movie. He deserves to be in this movie. And Michael Dougherty seemed to be really excited about including Rodan in this film. So whoever made the deal to get Rodan in this film, you picked the right one. And kudos to Michael Dougherty for seeming to be super excited to include Rodan, because he looks great. And I love this design that they've given him. He kind of looks a little bit like the Skeksis from the Dark Crystal, and I think he looks terrific. I can't wait to see it all on the big screen, and it looks like he's got a couple of dynamic action sequences. I've seen that, he looks like he's going to battle with King Ghidorah and Mothra, and he's going to get into a fighter jet fight that looks amazing, just from the few clips we've seen from the trailers. So I don't expect Rodan to be the star necessarily. I think the movie's going to be about Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, but it looks like Rodan's going to get his moments to shine, and I'm more than okay with that. And I was just happy that Rodan got to play this time, because, again, Mothra always gets to come back, King Ghidorah always gets to come back, Rodan doesn't always get to come back. So it's for him to be in this film, I think is really cool, and I'm super excited just to see Rodan once again. And this will actually be the first time I will ever see Rodan on the big screen. Never seen him before, so my second favorite monster getting his day in the sun, and I'm super happy about that. So yeah, go and see Godzilla King of the Monsters, which opens on May 31st. And if you're excited like I am, and if you're a big Rodan fan like I am, it looks like this film's got you covered.